Hi, Mark Redfield. 1 week from tonight, on August 12th in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, at the Monster Mania convention, we will premiere Sinbad and the Pirate Princess. Caroline Munro and Martine Beswicke are guests, and we'll have the CD there, and it will also be available on iTunes. And when I met Caroline many years ago, we long had wanted to figure out a way to work with each other, and I had developed some screenplays and thought about some scripts, and it was always the keen interest to do a film. And then in recent years, I began to experiment with audio plays, and I began to have some fun with the form and talked to her about doing some long form. I wanted to move into what I'm going to be calling audio novellas, for lack of a better word, because they're longer than 30 minutes each. And one of the first projects that I discussed with Caroline and we wanted to do together is an original thriller horror piece called Harker and the Shadow of Dracula. And I would play Jonathan Harker and she would play Mina Harker. And these would be the events in 1905, long after the events of Dracula. So it's sort of a sequel to Dracula. So we're going to be doing that next year. We pushed that into the future. And we also are talking about doing some original Bulldog Drummond adventures. And we've pushed that into the future because it suddenly struck me that kind of an obvious choice to do something that the entire family could enjoy, that her fans might like, would be to do an original Sinbad story. And of course, why not? Because Caroline Munro starred in The Golden Voyage of Sinbad in 1974. The Harryhausen films are a great influence on my taste in fantasy films. I can't remember the first Harryhausen film I saw. I can't remember when it was, where I was. It must have been television, but it could have been a theater. Sinbad has always been in the cinema, not as much perhaps, or not as with the big budgets as the other story from the Arabian Nights, The Thief of Baghdad, perhaps. But there are two kinds of Sinbad films. There are the Ray Harryhausen Sinbad films, The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, and Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger, and all of the other Sinbad films. There were a few Sinbad films before The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad in the late 1950s. They starred Douglas Fairbanks Jr., and then there have been a bunch of Sinbad films after the three Harryhausen films, and they were all incredibly influenced by what Harryhausen did. And our audio play, Sinbad and the Pirate Princess, really is no different. It follows the template set up not so much by the Arabian Nights and the stories of Sinbad as told by Scheherazade, but they follow the template that was set up by Ray Harryhausen and his screenwriters. And basically, Sinbad is a seafaring adventurer who has often very good relations with Baghdad. And the protagonist is often, there is in all of the three Harryhausen Sinbad films, there is an evil sorcerer or magician. And in the screenplay that was fashioned by Harryhausen and written by Brian Clemens for The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, it's particularly fascinating that the villainous magician that Tom Baker plays seeks a treasure and seeks the Fountain of Youth, and every time he uses his magic, he ages himself. He drains himself of his life force. Very, very clever things in Golden Voyage of Sinbad. And so that template, that basic idea, that there is a bad guy who is, in our case, it's a Queen Badra, played by Martine Beswicke, who wants a prize, who in this case wants to stop being tormented by a ferocious she-pirate, a she-devil pirate. But I don't want to give too much away in the plot. But the plot of the story is very, very simple. It's a very, very simple one. But again, I have to say that it was influenced by these 3 Sinbad films, these beautiful films that were created by Ray Harryhausen. And a friend of mine used the phrase just the other day that what we've done with Sinbad and the Pirate Princess is create a Harryhausen film for the ear. And I hope that we have. I hope that we've done something that on the one hand is very familiar and fits very comfortably as the 4th tale in the Sinbad saga, but at the same time stands on its own. The Sinbad films that Harryhausen made, obviously the first one, introduced this character. And I think this character alone in The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad probably single-handedly captured the imagination of so many, whether they saw this film on its initial release in the late 50s or whether they saw it on television or they saw it on video or Blu-ray since. It's quite an amazing creation, the Cyclops from The Seventh Voyage. And this is what carried us when we saw this, or even saw images of this creature. This carried us to the next Sinbad film, because the Harryhausen Sinbads had no continuity. There was no continuity, much like the older James Bond films. There was no through line in the adventures. There was no reference to previous adventures, or previous adventures in the films. And of course the actors changed, as did the designers and the composers, who lent so very much, including Bernard Herrmann, whose first score for the first Sinbad film is just phenomenal. One of the greatest scores in motion picture history. This character so grabbed my attention when I was a young man that I bought from a costume shop a rubber mask of this creature, of the Cyclops. And I never wore it for Halloween. It stayed on a shelf. I kept it wrapped so that the air would not destroy it. I don't remember who made it. It may have been a Don Post mask. I don't know. The eye was shiny. It had some wisps of hair punched into it. It was very expensive for a mask bought in the mid to late 1970s. I believe it cost around $40, which is a small king's ransom then. But this character was the promise and what got us excited and carried us through each of the Sinbad films. And I really love in Golden Voyage of Sinbad what Brian Clemens did with the story. It's when I imagined Sinbad for our audio play, for Sinbad and the Pirate Princess, in my mind's eye, my Sinbad that I played to Caroline Munro's Juna was a cross between John Philip Law's Sinbad and perhaps how, I don't know, Douglas Fairbanks Sr. in the silent era might have played him, with lots of energy and lots of joie de vivre. It was a great project. It was a lot of fun to work with Caroline, and after we had done a short version of The Black Cat, to do this longer piece, and I'm looking forward to doing these other ones. And we somehow managed to weave some kind of magic to talk Martine Beswicke into doing this and playing our evil sorceress, Queen Badra. Martine has often made noise, no, I don't want to act, I'm not interested. And I, in some ways, had but to ask, and once she got into the metaphoric water with us, she had a blast and relished the role. She's a great villain in this. So anyway, if you're a fan of the Sinbad films, like I am, I think you might enjoy Sinbad and the Pirate Princess, and pre-order it now with the poster, either the poster autographed or the poster not, and share it with your nieces, your nephews, your kids, your grandkids. Gather round. I think they'll enjoy it. So your next update is going to be on Sunday, where we reveal our poster that Mark Maddox is doing for Sinbad and the Pirate Princess. Until then.